Welcome to our vision board event. This is going to be a video that's just going to walk you through creating your own vision board by kind of following along with me as I do mine. And if you haven't already checked out the original blog post on our website that started this whole process, you'll definitely want to go back and check that out. And then I want to direct you to our highlights in our Instagram page that says vision, because you'll want to work through each of the 4 prompts that I had posted on Instagram, and that's all saved for you in our highlights, along with a couple of little videos in between that kind of walk you through gathering the supplies for working on your board. So if you haven't done all of that already, then you're going to want to pause here, go back and kind of work through all of that material, because there's a lot of reflection and a lot of preparation that goes into getting to this point where you're going to put your board together. Now, you may remember, if you've read that material already, that what started this whole process for me was just reflecting on the fact that planning and creating visions and goals the way that we used to do doesn't really work anymore. Life has just become so unpredictable, and there are so many things outside of our control. Honestly, control has always been an illusion, but I think in our culture, in a first world country, for those of you who are across the world in varying levels of developed countries, most of us kind of were spoiled into feeling some sense of control over our day-to-day. You know, if we wanted to travel somewhere, we could plan out, we could save up the money, we could book the tickets, we could go on that vacation, we could come home. Something as simple as that is no longer an assumption that we can safely make, because many of us have stories of travel plans just being canceled at the last minute for whatever reason. The airline cancels the tickets, or for something happens in the country or the area that we want to go to and now we can't go, or somebody in our party gets sick and now we can't take that trip. So there's just so much that has emerged in the past couple of years to really, really show us how little control we have over our day-to-day and over our world. And so one of the things I was noticing is that it was becoming harder and harder to get motivated to move towards something, to kind of decide where you want to be in life or who you want to be, and then start taking steps to move it, because it's like, well, I don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. Not to mention, don't get me started talking about, just the lack of energy and reserves that we have. That's a talk for another day. But anyway, I wanted to develop a process where we could create vision and we could get ourselves excited about moving towards something, but develop vision that's more enduring, that is more about who we want to be, and a little bit less. There's still some of this, you'll see this on my board. There's still a little bit about what I want to do. And I think that's something that we just can't help but have dreams and thoughts about, but really more focused on who we want to be, who is in control, a vision board that really helps remind us where our anchor is, so that as we're moving through the year and we're trying to set goals, maybe more short term, things that we can kind of like move a little bit more surely towards, our eyes are on what is really important and what really endures, so that we don't get halfway through the year and just throw up our hands in discouragement, defeat, because things that we had planned out or things that we had hoped for are clearly not materializing. So that is what we're going to work on today. You're just going to kind of walk along with me as I go through. I'm going to be filling in this in between my sessions throughout the day. You may hear my neighbor's tree that's being taken down right now. So, once again, just a perfect example of, okay, I could plan to record this video on such and such a day, but I have no control over what then turns out happening in our neighborhood. So today we have people coming to measure the windows in our house. We've got the neighbor who's got a crew over taking down their tree. So you know what? I'm just going to flow with it. You might see Justin pop in and out of scene here and there throughout the day. But you're going to come along with me for this journey so that you can be inspired to put together your own vision board. Okay, so thanks for coming along with me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to my table where you've got everything set up, and I'm going to show you kind of all the materials that I've gathered to get started. Okay, so here is my kitchen table where I've got my supplies set up. You'll see there are a number of pictures that I have saved from magazines or printed out online. There are quotes, song lyrics, some verses set up. And then I may decide to paint the background before I start gluing everything on. So I've got paints and brushes there ready to go. I've got acrylic brush pens that I'll use for lettering if I decide to do that. I've got some stickers. And then you may have seen from one of my videos before that I held off on getting sort of like embellishments. Ooh, you know what I forgot was my decorative paper. So I will make sure to get that and have that for when I get started. But anyway, I held off on getting embellishments because I want to put the board together first, and then we'll see if I want to add any little embellishments to it. So this is everything, most everything gathered together to get started. So the first thing I want to do is get my pieces laid out so that I have a general sense of where everything is going to go. And I think what I want to do is have a central thought in the middle of the page so that that catches my eye first. And so as I'm looking at my quotes, let's see. I think I'm going to go with this T.S. Eliot quote. It is a quote that is a riff off of a mystic. I forget her name. I'll post it in the show note, in the video notes. But I think I'm going to go with this, and you'll notice it's a little wrinkly because I accidentally balled it up when I was getting rid of all of my extra paper. But I thought it was kind of like an interesting metaphor of what we've been talking about, of things just not going the way that you plan. So I decided to just keep it. And normally I would reprint this so that it would be perfect, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way it is. So it's a little wrinkly, but I think I will make that the centerpiece. And so I'm just going to kind of lay pictures out in a way that makes sense to me. I really don't have any rhyme or reason to this part of it. I'm just going to lay things out, and then I'm just going to move it around according to what feels right for me aesthetically. I just want to kind of, yeah, there's really no way to kind of give you a formula for this. You have to just lay it out and just make it look the way that you want it to. And some people will do their vision boards and they kind of rotate their pictures or their quotes all kinds of ways. It's totally up to you. I tend to sort of have everything squared off, but I might change my mind as I lay this out. We'll see. And where I put the quotes, I think makes sense. Like this one that I have about living by the ocean, which is a dream of mine one day. I think I'll put that by the pictures of the ocean. And then finding beauty or creating beauty. Let's see. And holding the future. Now you'll notice as I work through my board that kind of the anchoring piece for me, the thing that will keep me grounded throughout the year as things change and we have to pivot a lot, is my faith. And so that shows up in what I've got here on the board, but that might be different for you. So you have to kind of think through as you did the reflection. This is why the journaling that that I have set up in the posts on Instagram is really important, because it's important for you to think through what anchors you. So if you have something else, if faith, you know, especially Christianity, is not your background or not your choice, then you're going to need to take some time to think through what is your anchor, what is it that keeps you grounded, and so that you have that show up in your board and what you put on your board. So I'm going to play around with these pieces and kind of like, I think what I'm thinking about as I'm looking at this is, not only do I want things to sort of like look aesthetically pleasing to me, and no one else can tell you what looks pleasing. I want it to look right to me in terms of like how the pictures are laid out. I like symmetry, and so I like things to be sort of balanced across the paper. Like I said, I might square things off, or I might kind of tilt it this way, I'm not sure. But I'm also thinking as I'm looking at this that I want the quotes or the lyrics or the verses that I have listed here to kind of go with the pictures that are next to them. So I'm going to need to work on that and kind of lay this out, and then I'll come back to this when I've got it situated. And what I'm going to do is I will take a picture of the final layout the way I want it, so that if I want to then take everything off and do the background, which looking at this, I think I am going to paint the back. I'm going to paint the paper so that there's a background of color to all of this. But anyway, so before I do that, I'll take a picture of the layout so that I'll remember how everything goes back together after I've painted the background. Okay, so I'll come back once I have everything kind of laid out the way that I want it. You don't need to sit there and watch me fuss around with this endlessly. I think that this is pretty much the final layout of how I want everything to be placed. Knowing me, when I do finally kind of do the last piece, it'll probably shift in little ways, but this is pretty much how I want to have the board look. I kind of brought everything closer into the middle so that the edges of the board are open, and I can kind of like really focus some paint and do kind of a border-ish type of look when I paint the paper. So just to kind of give you a little insight into what I'm thinking at this point. Again, when I get into it, I might change my mind, but this is what I'm thinking so far. I took a picture of it so that I'm going to take everything off the board now, and then I'm going to work on painting it. And I'll show you when I have that done. But because I have a picture, I'll be able to remember how to put everything back once I've got the background done. So here is my first layer of paint. I just kind of went in with colors that felt aligned with the pictures that I'm going to put on there. And so I like the color scheme and how it looks so far, but it feels a little chaotic to me. So I'm going to let this dry. It's acrylic paint, so it won't take long. And so I'll let it dry, and then I'll go in with a second coat of paint to kind of really make it feel a little bit more calm to me. And so just wanted to give you a little window into the process so far. Poster board, it curls up and gets kind of wonky, so I didn't end up finishing this yesterday as I had intended. I went ahead and weighted it down overnight, and so we're going to go ahead and do a reveal on my background. See what this looks like now. Okay, there we go. So, all right, yeah, that feels a little bit more flowy. It still has some energy to it, but it doesn't look chaotic like I did before. So, all right, so we're all set to start putting stuff on. So remember that I had forgotten about background paper. So I remembered last night and I got my supply down. And so what I now get to consider is, do I want to mount my quotes and my text onto paper and just kind of frame it out a little bit before I glue it onto the page, or not? So I'm going to play with that a little bit and then make a decision, but we'll see. So I've laid everything out basically according to the picture that I had taken when I laid it all out before, and I've made changes. I've brought things even closer together than I had them originally, because I just like the flow of everything being kind of like really tucked in, and then more space on the edge of the paper. I might move everything over a little bit because I feel like it's lopsided a little bit to the right. But in terms of like putting a decorative paper behind my quotes, which I had thought about, I thought maybe I would do it on just the center one to kind of try to make that pop, but I don't like it. What I did do is I rounded off, you'll notice, all of the quote pieces of paper, just because I typically don't like sharp, hard edges, and I really considered doing it even for all the pictures as well, but I think I'm gonna leave the pictures squared off and just leave the quotes. So I'm gonna take this off because I don't like this background paper, and I'm just gonna probably leave it. Like, I feel like it looks more, you can see it even better without that background paper behind it. So I'll have to figure out how I want to do these, but I'll kind of rearrange that. So this is just showing you some of the decisions that you'll make along the way. Try stuff, and it's kind of a metaphor for life, to be honest. You just need to get in there, try it, put it up and look at it, step back, maybe leave it for a few minutes, come back, take a look at it, and then decide whether you want it or not. And if you're not feeling it, just change it. And do something different. So even as I'm standing here looking at this, I think I may end up rounding off just this picture right here, because I just don't like how hard the edges are on it, but the other ones feel okay. And then, like I said, I might move everything over a little bit to the left just to kind of even out the space around the edges. It feels more crowded on this side than this side. And then I will start gluing. So this just gives you a little bit of insight into the process, and you all are going to do it differently. Everybody's board is going to look totally different. And I actually can't wait to see some of the things that you guys create and come up with. But I wanted you to have some insight into the process of how you play around with it, how you make decisions about how it looks, so that you kind of have something to riff off of and build off of. So it's time to start gluing things down, and there's a number of ways that you can do it. You can have, I cannot find my bottle of just good old-fashioned Elmer's glue, which I'm gonna need at some point, and I'll talk about in a second. But you can use that and just use a paintbrush to brush the glue on the back of the paper or onto the poster board, and then just tack it on that way. That's pretty simple. Or you can use a glue stick, which is also pretty easy. Or I am lucky enough to where I have some spray adhesive in there. So I can't find my Elmer's glue, but I could find this. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use this to start, and I'll just get everything tacked on that way. The spray adhesive is really nice and really easy, so that's why I'm starting with this. So you just, I have my table covered. I'm using an old bed sheet to cover my table so that I didn't get, stuff all over it. So you just spray the adhesive on the back, and then you kind of place it. And what's nice is you can You can lift up after you spray. So I had already sprayed this one, but you'll notice it's really easy for me to just lift it up and place it under. So I've done that. And then I'm just using a credit card to smooth it out after I've placed it. And so you'll remember this piece was really wrinkly, and so it smoothed out really nicely once I glued it down and I used the card to smooth it out. And so I'm doing that with each of these pieces. And like I said, after you spray it and lay it down, you can actually move it. So if you want some flexibility to be able to change your mind, then the spray adhesive is definitely the way to go. I mean, so everything is glued down now for the most part. It's not totally secure because that spray glue is not super tight. So I'm gonna cover the whole thing with what normally would be Mod Podge glue, but you can mix your own. I just took regular Elmer's glue and poured it in a cup, added a little bit of water just to thin it out a little bit, and then that's all you need. And then you can just use this to paint over the whole thing. And it will give it kind of a glossy finish, and it will also make sure everything stays glued down. So I'm just gonna do that, and that will be the final step for all of this. Now, one thing to work on or kind of keep in mind when you do this part is that it does soak the paper. So you're gonna have to kind of keep an eye on it as it dries, and you may have to get that credit card again and use it to kind of, smooth out the paper and get any bubbles out and flatten it out, because this is making the paper, getting it wet, and so the paper may wrinkle up from the moisture. So you may have to come back when it's like drying. Like, see, you can already see it kind of bubbling up. So I'm gonna have to flatten it out like that. So, yeah, so just keep that in mind, that you may have to come back behind and like flatten out the paper so that it's not all bumpy. Hopefully that has been helpful to you to see all the different steps as I've worked through the process. I originally started out thinking this was going to be done all in one day. But that absolutely was not the case. It took me several days to kind of like get back to it and get it all finished. So yeah, this video is ending with me looking different than when I started, because it's been spread out over a number of days. So this gives you something to kind of like foster some ideas and get you started. And the video will end with me walking you through the different areas of my vision board so that you can see how the journaling that we started with, which was posted on our Instagram and Facebook, how that journaling ended up showing up in my vision board. So we'll end this video session, this event, with that walkthrough, and hopefully that will give you the inspiration that you need to create your own vision board. And again, I want to just emphasize the main message of this particular version of a vision board was to get you thinking about not only dreaming and what is it that I'd like to see manifest in my future, but what happens when life takes a detour. Because we live in a world that has become so unpredictable, and yeah, there's just so much going on and things don't go the way that we planned. I wanted this vision board experience to take us in a different direction, where we have some anchors that we've been able to lay down and establish that keep us tethered and keep us focused even when things don't quite go the way that we had intended. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to you all posting your own vision boards, and just use hashtag Phoenix Vision so that we can find them. So if you follow this and you create your own version, then go ahead and post it, use that hashtag, or just send it to us so that we can see what you come up with as well. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. So here's a little tour of my finished board. Just kind of using the same prompts that I gave when I posted the 4 different journaling prompts. I just want to kind of talk through how that shows up in my board. And so you can see kind of my desires or the things that I like in bright colors, in the velvet chaise lounge I've always wanted to have in my office, arts and crafts organization, travel destinations, and, evolving faith, I think, is a huge theme for me in my life. And this is actually a podcast or organization which I find super challenging to my very traditional faith. There's a lot that I may not agree with or I'm not sure about, but I love it. I love their material because it just forces me to really consider my viewpoints and challenge, kind of things I've always assumed. There's a lyric here from Sarah Groves, I think is her name, song, Add to the Beauty, which I think really captures, my desire, how I want to live my life. And then there are some pictures on here that really kind of have to do with the retreats that I would love to lead at some point and groups that I want to run. And there's a lyric from a song about living by the ocean someday, which is another dream that I have of mine. And in terms of really believing in myself or believing what is possible, I have an affirmation that I have used. Where is it? That kind of really speaks to what I believe God has, called me to do. And I think when you have a sense of a higher power having assigned you a job, then it's a little bit easier to believe in the possibility. And then, of course, there's a verse that I have that really goes along with that. And then in terms of motivation, what motivates me, I think this is something that's really, really important to me. There's the whole issue or concept of being transformed. I think that really informs the way that we do work at Phoenix. We're all about transformation, not just quick fixes. And so that's something that really motivates me, because moving forward and doing the hard things is what transforms me as a person. And that's really important to me. Also, being able to give. And so a lot of times when I think about financial goals, one of the things that really motivates me is really having the resources to be able to give to others or in causes that I care about. Community is another thing that really motivates me. And then another affirmation that really kind of motivates me to move forward and press forward into the things that I really feel passionate about and want to do. And then the whole point of this board was to kind of really take a different look at goals and visions in light of the instability that we live in today. So one of the things I really wanted us to include in this vision board that may not have been something that we would have thought about in the past was what anchors us when things don't quite go the way that we were expecting, or the pictures that we have on our vision board aren't manifesting the way that we thought they would. Like, what keeps us going? What anchors us? And then, so that's, I think, this quote about the love story, and just remembering that we're in the midst of a war. For those of us in the Christian faith, we believe, many of us, in, a whole spiritual realm of things that are going on. And so we're not surprised when things, kind of don't go the way we expect. But this quote is a great reminder of, the fact that, it all will be well in the end. And of course, the transformed thing that I talked about earlier is another anchor. This quote was another anchor that is a good reminder to me. There's a song lyric, this very, very short, but it's actually a song. Gosh, I can't remember her name, but that's the title of the song. You already know. If you look up the song and look up the lyrics, you'll understand why I included it on the board as something that anchors me. And then finally, this verse and this picture that just reminds me that I'm covered and I'm protected. And so those are the things that I've added to the board that I may not have in the past, because it's not just about goals and dreams, but it's about remembering what is stable, what remains anchored, even when our plans are interrupted, disrupted, detoured. We need something that holds us steady and reminds us that all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well.